Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today is going to be the first of a two-part series of making homemade wine with strawberries that I got out of our garden. So stick around, we got a lot to do, and let's see what we can get done. Last year I made strawberry wine for the first time, and it turned out pretty good, but I wanted to modify the recipe a little bit. So I'm going to show you the recipe that I'm going to use. I'm going to show you how I do it. It worked out pretty well, like I said last year, but it needs a little modifications. So let's get going, get everything mixed together, and I'll show you what I do to get this wine going. So first off, and most importantly, always make sure that you sterilize everything before you start with wine. That's one of the biggest things that could ruin a batch, is just make sure that you sanitize all your equipment, all your buckets, all your spoons, everything like that. Make sure you get it good and clean before you start using it. So I just use Tarzan, found it on Amazon. It's just a sanitizing liquid. Just follow the directions and you'll be all set. So obviously, first thing we're going to do is put the strawberries in. So I have a sanitized mesh bag. I'm going to put all 15.5 pounds of strawberries in here and mash it up. And then once we get that in, we'll start with the water and the sugar. So with these strawberries, you want to make sure when you pick them or you buy them, cut off the tops and get off any of the foreign material. And then always freeze them. And by freezing them, you break up the fruit itself, and it extracts a lot of the juices out a little easier. And also, so these are still partially frozen. They're not completely thawed out. But what you do next is take a potato masher, and I'm going to mash these with inside the mesh bag and get out a lot of the juice ahead of time. So I'll mash these up and get some of the juices out, and I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, so you can see in here I mashed up the strawberries as best as I could, and there's probably about a half a gallon of straight strawberry juice in here, and it smells amazing. But what this will do when you mash these up is you get as much juice out as you can, and then through the next week as it ferments, you'll stir this bag up every once in a while, about every day, and try to get more juices out and get more flavor out of them. So now that we got these mashed up, the bag's tied off, we'll add our water and sugar, get it to the right amount, and get it to the right temperature. Those are two big things you want to make sure you get right. So let's start on the water and sugar. So with this recipe, I'm shooting for between 3.5 and 4 gallons of product. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 3 gallons of water and then about 8 pounds of sugar, and I'm going to dissolve that in both cold and hot water and get the temperature right. When you add it all in, get it all together, you want it about room temperature, maybe about 70 degrees or a little less. That way you're starting off right where you need to be for the rest of the week. So I'm going to start off with hot water, since they were partially frozen strawberries, and add probably 2 gallons of hot water with sugar, dissolve it in, and then I'll go back and forth and take the temperature each time I go. So once I get that in, we'll check it out and see what it looks like. Alright, so we've got the 3 gallons of water, about 8 pounds of sugar, all dissolved and mixed in. So there's actually a little over 5 gallons here. You want to make sure you leave room at the top for all the gases that come out when you're fermenting. But before I put everything else in, we want to test the starting gravity to see how much sugar we're starting out with. When you know that value and you know your end value, then you can figure out your alcohol content. So I'll take this as part of a kit. I'll add a link to the description below where I got this kit at, and then I'll also add the recipe to the description below, so check that out. So we have this cylinder and this measuring gauge, and this will tell us our beginning starting specific gravity. So we'll go in here, get some of the fluid in here, and you can see it's pretty cloudy. Obviously you got the sugar and all the strawberry juices mixed in. So all we do is drop this in, and this will tell us how much sugar we have to begin with. And the book that I have says you want to start between 1.090 and 1.095. And if your value is not right, you can add some sugar to get that where you need to be. But right now it says we're at almost 1.090, so we're right about where we need to be. So what happens is the more sugar you have as the yeast breaks it down, that's how you turn your yeast and sugar into alcohol. So we got this right about where we need to be. I'm going to add in the other ingredients. I'll show you what I got, and then we're going to let this sit for a day, and then we'll add the yeast tomorrow. Now we're going to add some ingredients like enzymes and nutrients to help the yeast and to help get a little more of the juices out of the fruit. So we have Yeast Nutrient, that helps obviously with the yeast part. Acid Blend, that helps with a little bit of flavor. Pectic Enzyme, which is something that helps get some of the juices out of the strawberries, so that helps pull some more flavor out. And then Wine Tannin, which is just kind of helps with clarification. Like I said, I'll have the recipe in the description below, so check it out. I'm going to add these ingredients, and then we'll be almost done for today. All the 4 ingredients are in that I said. The last thing we're going to do today is crush up 4 Campden tablets and put this in here. And what these do is you put in 1 tablet per gallon, and it just acts as a sterilant and an antioxidant, so it'll help kill any of the germs that are left in here. And what you need to do is put these tablets in 24 hours before you put the yeast in. So this is the last thing for today, and the easiest way to do these is take 2 metal spoons and put a tablet in between them and just crush them up that way, and then sprinkle it in. So once these 4 are in, we'll stir it up, and that is it for today. We'll check in tomorrow, and I'll put the yeast in. Alright, day 2. So obviously nothing has happened yet. We haven't put any yeast in. It's just sat for a day with the Campden tabs, and those help get a little more sterilization in here. So all I'm going to do today is I'm just going to give this a little stir just to get things mixed up a little better before I put the yeast in. So once I put this yeast in, after about a day or so, we'll start to see some fermentation, and then we let it go for about a week. That's when we'll put it in the Carboys. What I'm using is Red Star. That's a green packet. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but when you put this on for the first day, you just dump it over the top. They call it pitching the yeast, and you don't stir it in for the first day. So I'm just going to pitch this on top, cover it up, and we'll check back in a few days. See you in a few days. Alright, day 4. So we can see that fermentation is pretty steady. We're getting bubbles every couple seconds, which is a good sign. So I'm going to open this up, stir it up a little bit, and then we'll check back in on day 6. And fermentation should be slowing down. So let's stir this and see what it looks like. You can see it's bubbling and the yeast is really taking off. It doesn't have a strong alcohol smell yet. Obviously, we're pretty early in the process. So I'll stir this, and then we'll put the lid back on and wait for a few more days. See you on day 6. It's day 7. I skipped day 6. It was pretty boring. It was just fermenting, so it wasn't worth filming. On day 7, you can see it is done bubbling. So the fermentation is basically done, at least the primary fermentation is. So we'll take out the strawberry bag, get rid of that, that's junk. And then I will siphon off all of the wine into these 2 carboys. I have a 3 gallon and a 1 gallon. I'll open it up and see what it looks like and start some siphoning. One thing I forgot to mention that we need to do first is take a sample. We need to take a specific gravity sample. See the difference between when we started, where we're at now, and that can give us a rough estimate on the alcohol content. So just like we did when we started, we'll take this measurement, and we are sitting at about 0.0990. So what we can do there's just a free website you can go to. Just Google search it and how to calculate ABV, or alcohol by volume, for wine, and it'll have you put in your starting specific gravity, your ending specific gravity, and it'll give you a rough estimate. The first one, original gravity, was 1.0, it's about 0.85090. I'm just going to put 0.085. The final gravity was 0.099. I said that wrong before. So my final gravity today is 0.990, not 0.0990. That would be like 230% alcohol. So we have 1.085 to start, 0.990 to end today, and that is roughly, you can see that, about 12.5%. So I think it's a little stronger than that from what I experienced last year, but we're going to say about 13.5%, just to be safe. So now we can siphon it out. Alright, so this was the siphon that came with the kit. It's just a pump siphon. Pump it a few times. Make sure you don't get into the sediment at the bottom, and it will just simply siphon out into the carboys. We should have about 3.5 to 4 gallons by the time this is done. We'll fill this one up to about right here, leave some room just in case any fermentation happens. Same with this one. If it does get this high, we'll fill it up to about here, and that should be about all of it. So you can see now it's pretty cloudy, pretty light pink color. You can smell the alcohol coming out of here. So this just takes a little time, and we'll fill these up, and once they're full, I'll mark them, let them sit, and wait for the next step. Well, this made a little more than I expected by the time I got out of the sediment, but there's a 3-gallon carboy, a full 1 gallon, plus about 2/3 of another gallon. Right now we're at a stopping point. What we'll do is this will wait about 4 weeks, make sure all the fermentation's done. A lot of this will settle out within the first week, so you'll have all your sediment sitting at the bottom, and this should clear up quite a bit over the next couple weeks. So that's it for this first video. Stay tuned here in about a month, maybe a little over, when we finish. And what we'll do when we finish is we will make sure the fermentation's done. We'll kill all the yeast. We'll sweeten it, or add some simple syrup, which is just sugar and water, and sweeten it to taste, and then let it sit for another week. Make sure fermentation's not going to start back up, and then we will be ready to bottle. So check back in here in about a month. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that like, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you check me out on Instagram. Then you'll want to make sure you check out how to finish it. So thanks again for watching. See you soon.